Anthony Gordon to Barcelona. It is all but official after Fabrizio Romano gave his okay. After Fabrizio Romano gave the official, here we go. Anthony Gordon to Barcelona. According to Fabrizio, it'll be 70 million fixed plus add-ons. Where do I even start? I think first thing is first. Florian Plettenberg. Am I pronouncing his name right? I hope so. Anyways, the German journalist that's very close to Hansi Flick has said that Flick desperately wanted Anthony Gordon. That's first and foremost. We are under a successful project led by Laporta, surrounded by in the sporting area with Deco, Bojan, and Hansi Flick. And I believe that these two, the tandem of these two, are working together marvelously. And I think Flick deserves all the backing in the world. He deserves the profiles that he requests. And for such a long time, we've been begging to have a sporting director and a coach that are aligned, that are spending the money in the profiles that a coach needs. And if one thing's for certain, is that Hansi Flick has earned the right to be backed in a summer transfer window. He deserves for us to break the bank on whatever it is that he deems necessary, as well as long as it's aligned with what Deco has in mind as well. And that's all that matters to me. As long as Hansi Flick and Deco are aligned and they want him, go ahead. And that makes me excited because they know better than all of us do. That's for certain. I am so sure of that. And that's the number one thing for me. I get excited knowing that this club is heading in a direction that is responsible, that is aligned, and that is coherent. And we're providing our head coach, Hansi Flick, who has transformed this club on its head. He's taken us to the next level. He's returned us to European elite status. We are back. And that man has done so on a very limited budget, and he deserves to get the profiles that he needs. And that's the number one thing that stands above all. I don't care if I didn't like the guy, which I do. I don't care if I didn't rate Anthony Gordon. I don't care if people think it's an overpay. If it's within our constraints, which clearly we've been very careful with how we spend our money. And if Flick's on board, make it happen because he's going to make magic happen with it. I am certain of that. That's the first thing, first and foremost. So that and everyone that says that they have trust in Hansi Flick, that they have trust in Deco, and all this nonsense and all this stuff, what do you have to be fearful of? This is not the Bartomeu era. Leave that, put that in the bag, and tuck it back. Talk to your therapist about it. Be like, okay, I have this PTSD of the Bartomeu era. It scares me, and it's reminiscent right now. Oh, we're spending money for the first time. Hey, come on. Hansi Flick and Deco are at the wheel, and we have made a big signing. It is awesome, and I'm all here for it. Secondly, what do I think of the player? A younger version of Raphinha. That's what we're aiming for. He gets bought because he is a profile that we need, because whenever Raphinha goes down, our play style completely changes. We do not have the same intensity pressing forward. We do not have the same threat of runs in behind going forward. We do not have the speed that Raphinha has in transition going forward. He changes up the game for us so much whenever Raphinha goes down. And Raphinha has had numerous physical problems this year. And I've always said it. There's three players that we suffer incredibly, terribly, that alter our game plans anytime they go down. That is Pedri, that is Raphinha, and that is Lamine Yamal. And we simply cannot be that fragile to where if one of these three goes, obviously Lamine is impossible to replace. But Raphinha and Pedri, you can get similar profiles that can help mitigate that, because it is the drop in competitiveness and just overall play is significant anytime one of these goes down. And that's what we need. We need to address both of those. With Pedri, I think we're relatively good there, especially because the main one that could back him is Gavi, and Gavi had been injury prone, so that's why he's We felt that a lot of times, having Olmo having to play their drop deep. But whenever Gavi's healthy, he can be that backup for Pedri perfectly. But as far as Raphinha, we did not have a profile like him. We did not have someone that asks for the ball into space, that's fast in the counter into space, that um that has the same work rate as Raphinha, that has encompasses all those qualities together. And we're getting him in a 25-year-old, a much younger player, someone that if Raphinha's physique was probably at its limits. The 24-25 season, we were very lucky with Raphinha for him to sustain very little injuries. And we know that style of play of his is very physically taxing on the guy. And we need to start reducing his minutes. And also, he's on the latter half of his career. We don't know how many years he can continue to give us. If all goes well, he takes care of himself, he could easily give us 2-3 more years. But his production has been insane for us. And we need to continue to replicate that. And if his minutes have to be reduced, we need someone that can appropriately provide us the same thing Raphinha does. And Anthony Gordon is that guy. Anthony Gordon is the guy that can give us that exact profile. And I think one of the biggest things that people have been, there's a lot to commentate on the Anthony Gordon signing. There's numerous things, and I'm going to try to work through all of them. So, compared to Marcus Rashford, right? Hansi Flick, whenever Raphinha goes down, Marcus Rashford didn't necessarily come into the starting lineup. Many times he opted for either Gavi or Fermin to play on that left-hand side, especially in the quarterfinals against Atletico Madrid. We saw that because he simply did not trust Rashford to have that same work rate and give us that same press that we needed in such a high-intensity level game and for what Flick wants. And while, yes, the work rate that Gavi and Fermin were providing us on that left-hand side is equivalent to that of Raphinha, they simply don't have as of right now, have that attacking presence and speed off the counter that Raphinha does. Anthony Gordon gives you that attacking minded mindset that still gives you the speed. He would be the fastest player on the squad once he comes in. He's going to be the fastest player on the squad. And he's also a guy that Fermin does it relatively well, more so coming in, sneaking in at the 10 of making runs in behind. Gavi does it to an extent, but Anthony Gordon matches the runs in behind and the out of possession play. He is someone that works incredibly hard off the ball, that makes runs in behind, that has a certain degree of 1v1, and can ask for the ball into space. That is something that Rashford has not been able to capitalize on. Rashford has been a player that doesn't necessarily understand our flow of attack. Rashford has been a player that has so much individual quality and brilliance on his own that he's been able to be incredibly productive. Having 14 goals and 14 assists this season. All despite him not necessarily fitting into our style of play, giving flow to our style of play. He's been able to survive based off of his individual moments of brilliance. And I've made plenty of videos on Rashford. If you care to go see my opinion about him, go find my short form content or previous videos. But in short, I rate Rashford to be potentially one of the best players in the world in potential wise. But his work rate on the ball and his decision making is quite poor, and I think he has an enormous amount of room to exploit. But as of right now, we saw because Hansi Flick did not trust him whenever Raphinha went down. He did not trust him on that left-hand side. He resorted to Fermin and Gavi because he needed that work rate out there that Rashford just simply does not give you. So, having understood that, having the profile that has that same work rate, we've seen he's a freak, we've seen his stats, he's one of the guys that can replicate Raphinha's work rate, but he also adds a level of offensive threat. And Newcastle's his performance, firstly, this season, he fell out of the starting 11 in a large majority because he wasn't going to renew. Everyone knew that he was going to be out. Bayern Munich were interested in him. So were Liverpool. I think Arsenal were sniffing around as well. So if those three clubs are after him, I kind of like what I'm seeing. There's a reason for it. And obviously, you know, Luis Diaz is on the older side as well. Bayern Munich know that we don't know how long that Luis Diaz will be able to keep up those numbers and that work rate and how long his physique will hold up. And that's why they were also looking for a profile like Luis Diaz in Anthony Gordon that could probably supplement that. And it makes sense. Raphinha is that same kind of player, and which is why we wanted him as well. Bayern and Barcelona are deploying a very similar style of play, and which is the reason why we're going for Anthony Gordon. And as I was saying, compared to Marcus Rashford, although on paper it seems that it's not. Marcus Rashford has delivered as far as a GA perspective goes, but as far as the collective functionality of our attacking play and out of possession press, it leads to enormous defensive frailties. He does not press appropriately. He does not press and cut passing lanes at the appropriate angles. He leaves us exposed, especially when Cancelo's playing on that same side. It leaves too many gaps in behind. When you look at the games against Atletico Madrid, that side was the main one getting hurt. And not only that, but between Cancelo and Marcus Rashford on that side, they bump into each other a lot. Those are two players that ask for the ball at their feet, that they aren't a threat in behind, particularly Marcus Rashford. He's not a threat in behind because he doesn't make those timely runs in an appropriate manner, and he's not pressing well. He doesn't recover the ball as much. And that is something that's key to the collective as a whole. And that's what's so valuable about Anthony Gordon. And that is what is giving, that's why Flick wants him so desperately, because he needs that work rate off the ball. He needs that kind of press. He needs that kind of intensity. And he needs someone that's going to be on the end of the balls that Lamine, Pedri, Olmo, Gavi, Frankie, you name it. Because Marcus Rashford doesn't find himself in those situations. And Marcus Rashford has found himself in 1v1 situations in critical moments and missed. Against Atletico Madrid, he had 3 key moments where he was 1v1 against a keeper and he missed. And quite simply, I think Flick wants to keep Rashford because I think that he still sees that he might potentially explode, right? But the issue with Rashford is that he's on the latter half of his career. He's pushing 30. And not just that, but also, please spare me the conversations about the price tag compared to Marcus Rashford, because if you guys know how financial fair play works, in the accounting books, Anthony Gordon signing because of Marcus Rashford is on 28 mil a year gross, I think 14 mil net. Anthony Gordon won't be making anywhere near that. And with the appropriate salary, as far as financial fair play goes, he would be cheaper for us to get, even with the 70 million or 80 million price tag, because Marcus Rashford's wages are just that much more expensive. So on the books, Anthony Gordon is cheaper than Marcus Rashford. It's not about just the sole upfront price tag that we'd have to pay. It goes beyond that. The wages are also computed, and Marcus Rashford makes a hell of a lot more money than Anthony Gordon does. Anyways, going back to Anthony Gordon and his production at Newcastle, that doesn't serve me. What he's done at Newcastle does not serve me, especially this year, because they are not, obviously, the contexts are not the same. He's going to have an infinite more amount of chances to score. He's going to have an infinite more amount of ability to be in attacking situations. He's going to receive endlessly more attacking through balls, link up play, everything. The context, our style of play lends itself to attackers to produce an incredible amount of goals. We've seen it with Raphinha, who's had his best years. All of our front three has had great seasons as far as numbers go. And Anthony Gordon is going to find himself in incredible amounts of opportunities to score, to assist, to press and recover. That context in Newcastle, we're looking at attributes, we're looking at the profile and individual qualities. And for what Flick wants, Anthony Gordon fits perfectly into the puzzle, especially as the successor to Raphinha eventually. And it cannot be that anytime Raphinha goes down that we're screwed and we have to alternate and we just become so much more one-dimensional on Lamine's side. No, there'll be someone to be on the. How many times have we seen the assist? Lamine to Raphinha, in behind. Lamine to Raphinha, Lamine to Raphinha. Raphinha is the attacking forward that best understands Lamine Yamal. And Marcus Rashford has not been able to take that advantage of that as much as Raphinha has. And we need to add that dynamic threat once again when Raphinha is not on the pitch. And Anthony Gordon is just that. And some might say, oh, but that's 70 to 80 million wholly overpay. No, because I'm going to put this into context for you guys. How much is that kind of work rate and that kind of running behind and that kind of high intensity press worth nowadays? Luis Diaz was 75 mil. And yes, for sure, Luis Diaz was more proven. Raphinha was more proven as well. But those attributes nowadays in wingers, boy, are these we're in the era of lazy wingers. We're in an era of wingers and egotistical players that do not run, that do not press, that do not have a high work rate. And that is incredibly valuable to me. Yes, when you're in among the elite, which Anthony Gordon is, that is worth that price tag for me. Yes, absolutely it is, especially for the Prem prices. I mean, Madueke was sold for 50 mil. And you guys think, oh, there was other profiles out there. Who? Because who works just as hard as Anthony Gordon and Raphinha nowadays on the press? Who is out there that's reasonably priced that can give Flick that exact same profile? I can't. Among the elite, that is it. Who and when we look at alternatives, Rafael Leao, infinitely more talented than Anthony Gordon, but he is lazy. He is incredibly lazy. He has tantrums. He's had problems with Allegri. He becomes a nuisance at times in the dressing room. Because you think to yourself, so I think a lot of the things that people aren't quantifying and measuring is they're grossly undervaluing how much timely runs in behind, work off of the ball, and pressing are worth. Yes, this is more valuable than what individual talent that Leao can give you. It is infinitely worth more because that's so much more fruitful on the pitch. Absolutely, it is. What and oh, because he's not flashy, because he doesn't have the techers, because this and that. This is the era that we live in. There isn't that many elites at this level. You don't have locks. What options were there? Luis Diaz, obviously at Bayern Munich. Who else? Nico Williams would probably been a better fit, but for obvious reasons that he disrespected the club, played with everyone involved, and used this to get incredible, much more increase and renewal. For obvious reasons, he cannot be. Obviously, he'd be a better fit, but because of what happened last year, we're not going to sign someone that's disrespected the club. That sets a terrible precedent, obviously. And also his character, you've seen that he just played with us 2 summers in a row. We're just not entertaining none of that. No, we need to keep a stable club, less egotistical characters, and people that won't disrespect the badge. All right, that's gone. I mean, bro, for the love, one of the guys I saw, El Faze. I watch his videos all the time. Great content creator. Go give him a follow, subscribe, watch his videos. Kenan Yildiz. Juventus would sell everything of that institution but Yildiz. Why on earth would they ever give him? He has plenty of years left in his contract. And they're going to blind him. They're going to throw the bag at him because that is one of the only star boys out there right now. They are not letting him go for any price tag whatsoever. The only other one that you can maybe argue is Barcola. And we don't know if PSG would let him go to us for a reasonable amount. And even that his work rate might not be even as productive as Anthony Gordon's. Yes, he's Luis Enrique style. And you could argue, sure, I could see that. But maybe that just wasn't feasible. But the timeliness of the way that this guy it works. Like even in Faisal's video, he said, "Oh, you're just getting another Raphinha, 80 mil for another Raphinha." Yes, every day of the week. If you're guaranteeing me another Raphinha for 80 mil, sign that, bro. That's what it's worth. Are you kidding me? Are you mean to tell me that Raphinha's performances and what he's providing for us isn't worth 80 mil? And you mean to tell me Anthony Gordon's another one? Sign me up every day of the week. I am here for it. What are we talking about here? Every day of the week. At that intensity, at that pedigree, at that level, the runs in behind, the threat on goal, because he's gonna score a hell of amount of goals here. I'm sure of it. I am sure of it because he's gonna find himself with an incredible context, especially with the way that we press. Boy, especially if he's coming off the bench or starting with his fresh legs, with his top end speed. I'm sorry, but this is a perfect profile for Flick. And not just that, this season, before he got, benched because everyone knew that he was looking to leave, he was playing down the middle. And it could be very interesting to see Raphinha, him, and Lamine playing up three, being interchangeable, kind of adding that level of dynamic fluidity that PSG have. Having these guys be interchangeable, because I'm not entirely sure. They say that they're still going for a top end striker, which would be amazing. I'd hope so. But if we don't, adding that fluidity up top and mimicking that with three dogs in the press, having Rafa and Anthony Gordon on either sides, and having Lamine feeding them. Boy, we're in for a treat. I'm all here for it. What are we talking about here, y'all? We're severely undervaluing what Raphinha provides us. Yes, that's worth 80 million. Yes, it is. The ROI in that is there. And the other thing, right? On Lias Bouzidis' video, he's another creator, same SDS crew. He was asking, is the ROI for what Anthony Gordon can provide you? Are the runs in behind? Is that work rate? For our style of play, yes, that's worth 80 mil. There are no players like that. And the other thing about that is that he's prem proven. We know he's a great player. He had Liverpool behind him. He had Bayern Munich behind him. He had Arsenal behind him as well. The thing with the way we buy, right? Because he was saying, oh, you can probably go purchase a player for half that in the Ligue 1. There's players like that out there. Given that Anthony Gordon has a history of being prem proven, and that we are in a dire situation where we're barely being able to spend money again, and we have to be very careful with how we spend. I saw a video of Jordi Cruyff saying that, whenever they were in between selling, they were in between Anthony or Raphinha at the time. They went for Raphinha. And the deciding factor was that Raphinha was prem proven. And because Raphinha was prem proven, if he for some reason failed, he had plenty of resale value in case he didn't work out at Barcelona. Because if Anthony failed, you would not be able to recover your investment that you made in him. And we saw that even when Raphinha was rumored to leave, he was still being talked about in the 60 to 50 to 70 million dollar price range. He did not lose his value. Even though he hadn't been quite successful before Flick came, he still had resale value. Because losing someone at a huge loss, we cannot afford that. We simply cannot afford that. It's because Anthony, right? Anthony flunked out at Manchester United. You never in a million years would you have been able to sell him again for another 100 mil. No, you couldn't have after he fought at Manchester United. Right? But a Raphinha, who's been proven before, he had resale value. So for us, whenever we sign Anthony Gordon, right, it's not the same as dropping, because obviously these French clubs, if Barcelona is knocking the door, they're gonna ask for a hell of a lot more money. And what we can't allow is for us to, if for whatever reason it doesn't pan out, that player has no resale value. If we buy a player from the Portuguese league, if we buy a player from the Netherlands, if we buy a player from these other lower tiered leagues, they have no resale value because they are not proven elsewhere. Anthony Gordon is proven. And if for whatever reason he's a bust, relatively, because he won't be a complete bust, he'll probably sit like Rashford, still get his GA, still get his bag, and he retains his value. So he will not be a loss on the books because we will be able to sell him. He will have resale value if he's a quote unquote, not exactly what we're looking for. But if one of these other players like is a bust and they're not proven anywhere else, he will be a loss on our books. Absolutely, he will. So you can't just go out, especially in our situation. You got to calculate all the risks. And if we go for a younger profile and for some odd reason they're a bust and they're not proven, they don't have a history of being proven, and we can't get off of them, those are losses on the books, y'all. Y'all need to understand the entire context of it. And that's why. That's why. For example, if for whatever reason, Florian Wirtz right now, actually, no, he'd probably still go for good money, but it could, for example, say Yan Diomande, right? Leipzig is asking for 100 mil plus. If he were to be a bust at Barcelona, there's no way in hell we're recovering that 100 mil. No way, no chance. Zero, nada. And that's financial hell. That's what brought us here in the first place. Having to get rid of so many players that were earning so much money at a loss because they didn't have any resale value. But Anthony Gordon, especially being so young, especially being prime proven, he will not lose his value. Absolutely not. So that's another thing to factor in. As far as for me, for what I think, for my personal opinion, I think y'all could tell. Bro, I'm ecstatic. You mean to tell me we have another Raphinha? Boy, I'm here for it. Are you kidding me? Work rate, hard work, press off the ball. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say that till I'm in my last breath because that's what we so desperately need. That exact profile. Oh my goodness. And if for whatever reason he's able to settle in, maybe as the 9 and add that dynamic fluidity, boy, we in for a treat. I'm all here for it. But just assuming that we'll have another player there. Because the issue was when Rashford and Ferran played, and Ferran, he closed the season way better than he started it. But whenever initially, bro, that Clásico in the first half of the season, Ferran and Rashford, oh my goodness, they did not press at all. They did not hold the ball up. There was no runs in behind. Ferran got bullied. Marcus Rashford was isolated and could not produce anything. You cannot have two guys that are lazy on the press. Our entire fluidity of our structure does not lend itself to play well. Marcus Rashford and Cancelo also bump heads a lot because Cancelo thrives going overlapping out wide, and Rashford is someone that also wants to be out wide, and there isn't that necessary the synergy there. When we have an Anthony Gordon that can operate in the half space there, like Raphinha can, he does not change our entire style of play. When Raphinha goes down, y'all see the stats. When Raphinha plays and when we don't, the amount of losses that we have without Raphinha, the stat is ridiculous. And you mean to tell me we have someone that mitigates that? Maybe to the TN we have a successor that's younger. Bruh, I'm sorry, but that's a 10 out of 10 signing. I have full faith in Flick that this will be great. I'm looking him as the same qualities that Raphinha has. Faster, younger. He's probably gonna bag his goals. Bruh, I'm all here for it. Give me speed demons. Give me press monsters. Give me guys like that. Because even then, right, you have a guy that also could play down the middle. And besides that, if you were to buy someone, that's like, oh, we should have gone for a more dribbling profile, another X factor on that side. The play can become so lazy whenever you have two profiles like that because then you don't really look for runs in behind. You don't really look for, adding that intensity up front because you default to, let's just give the ball to the wingers and pray. That can't be, y'all. That can't be. We need a workhorse like that. When you have one magician and two guys that are ready to be on the end of those balls, I'm sorry, but give me that every day of the week over a dribbler out wide. Nah. Absolutely not, bro. Give me the workhorse guy. Give me the guy that's in the top percentile in the elite. I'm not talking about a bum here. No, I'm talking one of the guys that does this the best. We've seen how this squad works. Well, I would have. This season looks totally different. Those chances that Marcus Rashford has against Atletico Madrid, Anthony Gordon puts away. Those 1v1 situations that Rashford has, Anthony Gordon probably puts away. Our dynamic and our style of play, we don't have to change because Fermin and Gavi had to play out there because Flick did not trust Rashford because we can't deploy the same style of high press. But with Anthony Gordon, we probably would have, and I would argue that we probably advanced. If we had Raphinha against Atletico Madrid, boy, all the chances that Marcus Rashford had, Raphinha would have put away easily. That's his preferred finish right there. Low driven across with his left foot. Give me Anthony Gordon there that's making those same runs in behind. And we don't have to change our style of play. Boy, he's putting those away as well. Because, yes, right, Marcus Rashford on the ball might be better and individually talented, more of a player. But for the functionality of the collective as a whole, Anthony Gordon elevates us. And yes, if that's the price to pay, Flick deserves every bit of backing. I'm all here for it. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys make of the signing? I'm elate. I'm on the moon. Let's back Flick and let's just sit back and enjoy. But let me know what you guys make, and see you guys in the next video.